It seems the young women are trying to figure out what femininity is. So I'm going to be really mean out of the gate. Lauren, what's femininity?
I mean, I think it's different for every person, like how they choose to present themselves as a feminine woman. I'm not,
That's a
I
good
don't
answer,
wear
but-
dresses. I don't wear like heels and lipstick, and some women do, and that's what makes them feel feminine.
But you're saying there's still an aspect of it that is distinctly woman.
Yes.
I mean, because apparently now we're the weird ones as followers of Jesus. Where We're
Right.
like, hey guys, there's two genders, male and female.
Yeah.
But you're saying there isn't a small box of femininity.
Right.
Well, what does it look like for you? You don't wear lipstick or dresses.
No,
what
I don't.
What are you doing? Lifting weights and like
No.
doing push-ups and camping?
No.
All the man stuff? No.
I'm wearing sweatpants in my house, taking care of my kids. That's what I'm doing.
So how do you keep it feminine? Is there eyeliner or something where you're like, this makes me feminine?
I'm feminine because I am a woman.
Got him.
Uh-oh, Daria, got him. Okay, your turn. What's femininity? Go ahead. Live on the radio, no preparation.
It depends on who you are. Just like women have different hobbies. Some people are really, really into makeup. I do wear makeup, but I wouldn't say I'm into makeup. And like Lauren said, some women do like to wear dresses all the time. Some women like to hunt or fish, and that's femininity to them.
And now both of you are sounding like some morally relativistic secularist saying, what's femininity? Well, it just depends on what you want it to be.
And it depends on your culture, too.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
I mean, what feels feminine here is not the same as maybe in China or Korea or India. It's not the same.
But would you both say, even though you can't give a definition to it and you're feeling like it's very relative, there is a box, right?
I mean, I do think there is a degree to which some women have rejected femininity, but that is just, I mean, that's an intentional choice where she's like, I don't, and I'm not even talking about a woman who thinks she's not a woman, just like, I want to be as unfeminine as possible. And that's not saying that a woman can't hunt and fish and still be feminine, but some women have chosen to reject that. But again, that's going to look different for different people.
You'd call them butch. Or at least I would call them butch. You might not.
Not sure I'd use that phrase.
Well, but older guys like us would. That's what we said for decades, right? So you're not, it's distinctly not man.
Mm-hmm.
But you're saying it's an enormous box where it's not defined by what you do.
Yeah, I think.
So then what makes you feminine?
I just said being a woman.
Different things are going to make a different woman feel feminine.
Yeah.
But you both feel distinctly different than men and than your husbands.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you feel happy about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm wearing pants. I don't wear dresses all that often, and I feel like a woman. Yes, I wear pants.
But I mean, but okay, well, I'm trying to find a box because you know me, I like those. I like to be in a box. It's fun sitting in them. So you go to the women's section of department stores.
Yeah. Are you asking why I do that?
Well, no, but you do.
Yes, I do.
Why? I just asked you why now. I wanted it to be on my terms.
Because men and women's clothes are cut differently.
And you want yours to be cut woman.
Yeah.
There, we're finding it, Ron.
Because
Here it comes.
Because women aren't squares. Men's torsos are squares.
You're like, I don't have hips.
Yeah.
It's a problem,
So
actually.
men's shirts are squares, and I don't need a square shirt.
You need one that fits the shape of a woman.
Yes.
And I mean, this is an observation, you have hips.
Yes.
So does Daria.
Yes.
I need a belt or my pants will fall off.
Yeah, exactly. You're a
Okay.
square.
Wait.
That's interesting. Because
Wait. I mean, not figuratively, though. Let's be, I'm very cool. I'm not an L7.
Your
Yeah,
body
more of a
shape is
rectangle.
Square.
Sorry, Ron, go ahead.
I noticed two nurses, I'm assuming, wearing black, smocks and pants like you'd wear in a hospital. They walked in and then walked out past me in the waiting room. And I noticed that. I'm like, wow, there is a distinct difference. The dude was basically, a rectangle up and down. And the woman had, her feet were closer together where his were apart. And, there was just a shape to her that was different. And I'm not trying to be exploitative or whatever.
Yeah,
It was,
I'm the one who said it first.
it was
so.
just a fact. They had different outlines.
Yeah.
And yet, if we backed up to Ron's childhood, which would have been the 1970s, right? Is that fair?
Yeah, 60s and 70s. So.
60s. I see it. Look at me. I was being generous that time.
Well,
I normally would have been like back in the 40s when Ron was a kid.
thank you.
The box of what it means to be feminine is much smaller. Is that fair to say?
In Ron's childhood, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And in the era in which he grew up, there was much more expectation of what it meant to be feminine, I think. You're not willing to say that.
I think so. I think by the 70s it was on the way out.
50s then. Go back to the 50s. I'm trying to find the time when the box was smaller.
Yeah, probably definitely as recently as the 50s, but by the 60s and 70s when that would have been second wave feminism started to rise, I think we saw it start to transition more to what it is today.
Is it better or worse? I'm talking from a Christian perspective here. Forget the world for a minute. Is the larger box of femininity better or worse, do you think?
I think it's better only because I think women don't feel like they have to be something that they don't feel like they are. Like they don't have to wear dresses and skirts and heels if that's not what they feel like wearing.
And you don't have to wear lipstick and it's socially acceptable.
Right. Yeah.
Sarah hates lipstick.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. Now, with that in mind, I think a lot of women in your generation are a little disoriented and frustrated because I think the lines have become so blurred.
Mm-hmm.
And so Christianity Today did a great piece observing something we've talked about a little bit before. It's called the trad wife movement. Mm-hmm. And for those older folks like me in the Gen X generation and above, traditional is what that would be short for. So here we go. Let's bring back beauty, begins the caption of a viral reel on Instagram. The clip features Christian influencer Katie Calabrese. Calabrese. Okay. In an airy long dress, followed by a montage of images. One of them, flowers on an open Bible, a clothesline full of linen neutrals, a clean stairwell with wooden floors and shiplap walls, a faceless woman standing in front of a bowl of dough while holding a baby. That to her, she's saying, let's bring that back, bring back beauty. The caption lists other things she wants to bring back. Ladies who know how to whip up a delicious meal for unexpected guests, going to church, having big families, and, quote, loving your husband and singing his praises in front of others. Calabrese belongs to a cohort of online trad wife influencers whose personas are built on the revival of various traditional expressions of femininity, marriage, homemaking, and family life. The thrust of their callback message rings familiar to those who grew up in fundamentalist Christian circles, though it's uniquely packaged for Instagram and TikTok, where trad wife posts have become substantial since 2020. Trad wife content is unabashedly ahistorical, is how they write this, drawing on ideas of imagery from across time periods. Some trad wives build their brand with a 1950s June Cleaver persona. So us older folks can go, oh, okay. Yeah. Vacuum with a very nice dress on and your hair done.
Pearls.
And heels.
And heels. Uh-huh. You're mad about the heels part.
I hate heels.
Why don't you vacuum in heels, Daria?
Because my feet hurt.
Like, it'll cover less surface area on the floor so it doesn't disrupt your vacuuming.
Won't that scratch my hardwood floors?
Well, have a lighter step. Also, wearing lipstick and an A-line dress to do housework. I don't even know what an A-line dress is.
It looks like an A. It's like starting at like the waist. It billows out just a little bit, not as much as a ball gown though.
Yeah.
Okay. Others evoke imagined versions of Little House on the Prairie. Long dresses, rustic homemade bread, and rural homesteads. Apparently bread is a big deal right now.
Sourdough's a really big thing right now.
Sourdough. Like they talk about it. And there's a description in here.
Yeah.
Homemade, artisan, organic, succulent sourdough, ancient grain bread.
Sounds delicious.
What's the appeal of sourdough? What happened? What's wrong with rye?
Number one, it tastes good. Number two, it's fun to make something from scratch. Number three.
And you have to put like weird stuff in it.
Yeah, you get to like watch it like bubble and grow.
Yeah, sourdough is like a very specific hobby because it's more difficult than regular bread. Like you have to make the starter, and you have to feed the starter and pray the starter doesn't die, and then you can make your bread.
Or you just go to the store and buy a loaf of it.
In this economy, I do all my own bread.
Do you make artisan sourdough?
No, I don't have time for that.
Oh.
It's a long process.
But I mean, that's like, to me, in a nutshell, that's representing what it means to try to reach back to femininity. You know, knead your own dough, make artisan sourdough, feed your starter. Right? Is that what you said? Feed your starter?
You have to feed your starter.
Goodness sakes. It sounds like a mechanic. And then you've got some posts borrow images from Victorian households. It's like, it's not historical. And so they're going on. And then here's some major points I want to get to. Many tradwife influencers also are believers who foreground their faith, making a case for biblical womanhood through their stylish and meticulously curated feeds. Even creators who don't consider themselves religious are pitching a vision and worldview that many Christian women, particularly evangelicals, eagerly co-sign. So what they're saying is, like, a lot of these tradwife influencers are saying, not only is this feminine, this is Christian. A Christian feminine woman wears an A-line dress, stays home, needs bread. And here's the
feeds their starter.
Feeds their starter. Whip up a delicious meal for unexpected guests, loving your husband and singing his praises in front of others. Do either of you feel like you're inside that box?
No.
No.
Uh-oh. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Are you worried about, like, there's going to be mean texts now? Are you even a woman?
I mean, if they thought we were in that box, I don't know what they're listening to because...
Not our show.
Yeah.
I will say that I think there's a lot of men out there now, too, young men in particular, who kind of want that.
Mm-hmm.
They want that to be feminine again.
Well, I'm happy for them and for the women who think this is beautiful and they find joy in doing this. That's great, but I don't think that they need to put it on everybody else.
Right.
You can't just wear a dress when you vacuum, Lauren?
No.
For Eddie?
No. Eddie vacuums, first of all. I hate vacuuming.
Well, maybe you ought to
Makes me
take
really
that
hot.
over. Well, it's because you're not wearing a dress. Long, flowy, light dress. You'd be a lot cooler.
No.
I mean, come on, just a dress. It's a dress. You don't.
You first, Brian.
Well, I don't wear dresses. I'm a man. Hey, 6:31. Time for a quick break. When we come back, I want to keep digging into this because I think there's something deep behind this. It's not about whether or not this is silly. Some people like it. Some people don't. There's got to be something going on here with femininity we got to talk about. We'll get to that with these pants-wearing, non-vacuuming, non-sourdough making women here in just a minute. So it's a big thing on social for young women today. It's the tradwife movement. It's traditional womanhood, essentially. Classical femininity. Even like it's like June Cleaver or it's Ma Ingalls. It's all those things kind of wrapped into one. It's, ladies, it's someone who knows how to whip up a delicious meal for unexpected guests. It's going to church, having big families, and loving your husband and singing his praises in front of others.
Oh, big families. It defines your femininity now.
Yes, you're very fertile, essentially. And you raise your children at home while wearing pumps and vacuuming. And pumps, is that still a thing? I don't even know what I'm saying, really.
I know what you mean.
An A-line dress and curls and stuff and makeup.
Right.
I've got two young women here who are not tradwife women. So I brought this up to you off the air yesterday. Would you say these women this is weird, it's wrong, they shouldn't do this?
No.
No.
What do you mean?
If that's what they want to do and that's what makes them happy, that is perfectly fine. But as we were discussing earlier, femininity is not a one-size-fits-all. And I think what happened, and we kind of alluded to this at Walk Worthy, because of the blurring of gender lines in the last couple of years, both men and women have created caricatures of what it means to be a man or a woman. And we talked about what the caricature of a man is. They like camping and, they're really tough and all that. And this, for women, is that extreme caricature. And for some women, I think they've genuinely found happiness. I wish them well. For some, I think they're just playing it up for the camera, and it's possibly less real than you think.
Well, and what's even more interesting is you dig into this article, which is far too long for us to look at from CT, but there's almost this meshing of Mormon and evangelical women online because they have similar visions of femininity. And so it seems as if, I don't know, the theological lines are not even mattering that much, which I think is ironic, right? Because I think it's, For a lot of Christian women, it's faith that drew them to this. It's their love for Jesus and God's definition of male and female. And they're reacting against a society doing it differently. Like, to your point, Daria, I looked it up. I Googled how many genders are there because I honestly didn't know. Do you guys know how many there are?
If it's coming from Google, it's going to say, like, it's unlimited.
Not unlimited, no. Daria, do you know?
I was going to say infinite.
No, it's not. So we haven't gotten to that stage yet.
Some people would honestly answer
Yes, they
that,
would.
though.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they would. Genesis 2, if you read that, would say there's two, male, female.
Mm-hmm.
One website, medicinenet.com, says there's 72 genders.
Wow. And that's not counting furries and people who feel they're animals, those kind of things.
I'd have to look here. Is there furry in there? Furry, D, they have them alphabetized. E, F, fem fluid, fem gender, fluid flux. Nope, no furries. So you're saying this is what Christian women are reacting against. If you're gonna make all these things, I've got to swing back and show people what a woman is.
I think so.
That's a good point.
So then how do you define your own femininity in a society that's messing it up? Like there's a swimmer, I forget her name, who's winning all the college championships,
Mm-hmm.
beating women in the pool there.
And laughing about it.
Yeah. How do you are you not stressed, Lauren, about your femininity?
No, I'm not stressed
Why not? Society's changing what femininity is.
because I'm secure in who I am in Christ and what is He calls me to be and what's okay by His standards.
Aren't you concerned, if you're not going to be trad wives, aren't you concerned in some sense you're going to react against what a trad wife is and develop another warped sense of what femininity could be?
So swinging the opposite way and like going tomboy.
Yeah, like wearing your paint-stained sweatpants and not wearing any
I've
makeup.
already done that. I've already done both those things.
I don't see why there's anything wrong with that.
Well, what I think Christians are looking for is a box, right? We want boundaries. Like, this is the boundary line for what a man and a woman is. And as a Christian, shouldn't you lean further into across the line just to make clear that you think you're a woman?
I mean, people are so different. We have different interests, different personalities. And if you look across time, what a woman is going to vary based on your location and when in history it is. We're going back to Ma Ingalls. She had a lot of traits that I'm sure we would associate with masculinity because, you know, you're forging this new trail, building a home on a prairie where there's nothing. You're going to have to be strong. You're going to have to be tough, dealing with animals, maybe chopping wood, stuff that we don't associate with traditional femininity.
Oh, I don't think they chopped wood, Daria. That was a man's job.
I'm sure they did. Man was out doing other stuff, and you did what you had to do to survive.
Right.
And that was femininity in her day.
But you raised your children in a long dress at home.
Yeah, because that was the fashion at the time.
Yeah, what the trad wife is doing is they're going back to like, okay, say the 50s, but in American 50s.
For white people.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, no one is going back to 1950s African-American womanhood where you didn't have rights.
Yeah.
Which, I think we could dismantle the trad wife movement in that sense, where it truly is a fictitious, a longing for a fictitious period in which a very small number of people enjoyed life in that manner.
Right.
You had to have a measure of wealth and you had to be white.
Yes.
Even now, I mean, most of these women don't work. So they have hit the jackpot. They have found someone who makes a very decent living, which
to have their 7 kids.
and for them not to work. In the year 2024, it is very rare. It's a rare blessing that a woman can stay home with her children even if she wants to, because dual income is kind of necessary.
But now, okay, so we are ambassadors for Christ. We're to represent him to the world. And one of the things that's become, it wasn't before, you didn't have to talk about it, but one of the distinguishing characteristics now of a Christian is that we believe there are only 2 genders.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that we reject the idea of gender dysmorphia. No. I mean, that's a psychological phenomenon. Absolutely, it's a thing that happens. But in terms of God's definition of gender, there's 2.
Mm-hmm.
And so don't you as a Christian woman then bear some responsibility to represent what a woman is to the world around you?
I don't think staying home and wearing a dress and baking bread means I'm saying this is what a woman is. I don't think that's what that means.
But somebody will be dissatisfied with how large of a box the 2 of you have drawn. Like, in some sense, shouldn't we create a box just to prove to the world as ambassadors, women are this, and this is distinctly not men?
No, I don't think so.
Why not?
The boxes used to be much larger. I think the whole there's 72 genders comes from people enjoying labels and enjoying small boxes and wanting to feel special. So they're going to create a name for everything. So if they don't fit into exactly this, then that must be an entirely new gender because I have a different personality trait than what they typically associate with one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't think there's any need to like go, let's just say there's a line. Picture in mind, you've got two sides, men, women. You draw a line in the middle.
Yeah.
You can be just to the edge of the line of feminine as an ambassador for Christ. You follow me? Like somebody, a trad wife would say, I'm going to show the world what a woman is. And you're like, meh, I'm a woman. I don't have to show anybody anything. It's obvious.
Yes.
And that's acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
I'm also not trying to get attention online for who I am and get praise for my lifestyle choice.
Well, on top of that, somebody could crack open Proverbs here, go to Proverbs 31 and start going, this defines a woman.
She was a working woman.
She works hard is basically the summary of that passage. It doesn't, I think, matter what type of work she's doing, but she works hard.
Yeah, it's one of those interesting passages that, sure, we could dismantle that this morning. We could talk to a theologian about it. Men do not have a Proverbs 31, which I find very fascinating. Like this is what a woman is, right? Or this is what a man is. And Proverbs 32 is man. He camps, he sleeps with a pillow for a rock. That's, all this stuff. But I think women have tended over time to focus on particular aspects of the Proverbs 31 woman, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Because you both just did it. She works. And is that you, in a sense, trying to justify that you are one? Because you're both working right now?
No,
you're not wearing a dress vacuuming?
It's the opposite. It's women say, oh, she is demure and she cares for her family and she does all these things. Yeah, but she was also hardworking. It doesn't say that she lives this aesthetically beautiful life in her kitchen with muted color tones baking bread. It doesn't say that.
We're not also just describing work as like going into the workforce.
Yeah.
Work is raising your children, keeping up your house, being a pillar in your community.
Yep.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? You make such a good point because if you look at Proverbs 31, and by no means could you paint a picture of a 1950s white middle-class woman.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's some aspects of it, but the whole aesthetic that's painted by a trad wife, that's not biblical. Having to wear an A-line dress.
No, it's not.
Curls, heel. I mean,
no, it's not.
That's not there at all. Although here's what I'll tell you. I think it's kind of interesting. And after a quick break, I want to get to this. I think there's some men that, whether it's legitimate or not, long for some of the traits of a trad wife to be displayed by their own wives. And I would wonder what our millennial and Gen Z women would think of that. Like the one I think of right away, and I can give another example in just a minute of this, where it describes her, right? She can whip up a meal for guests and all that. Loving your husband and singing his praises in front of others. I bet a lot of men would go, oh, I'd love that.
As opposed to snarking, with your girlfriends about what a baboon your husband is and what a oaf. He couldn't do anything around the house if it weren't for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you're just tuning in, we've been talking about a really interesting, in-depth piece from Christianity Today about the trad wife movement, which is huge among younger women, okay? And it really is, as we've been chatting about, I think it's a reaction among Christian and Mormon, we're finding, women, against the blurring of the lines of gender. Daria brought that up, and I think it's very true. It's been happening to men much longer, but I'm seeing it now pop up where women are going, wait, what does it mean to be a woman if there's 72 genders? And so they're creating this caricature, essentially, of swinging the pendulum into extreme femininity, okay? Now, before the break, I mentioned that there's an aspect of this that I think some men, whether they're young or old, long for from their wives. And let me tell you a story tied to that. Probably was maybe 15 years ago. Sarah and I were members of a church. Just so you get a cultural context, it was the south side of Chicago, African-American community. We were in a married couples group. It was probably about 10 different married couples doing a study together in the Sunday school hour between church. And I remember a consistent theme coming up. A lot of guys frustrated with their wives. One of the things they really longed for in their relationship was that when he came home from work, every once in a while, as she'd fix him a plate. Now, if you're not familiar with that phrase, it would just be like that dinner would be ready when he got home from work, and she'd be like appreciative of him showing up to the extent that she kind of dished up a plate of food for him and was like, I bet you're really hungry after a long day. Here you go. Have something to eat, honey. Sit down. Like lots of longing for this. It came up time and again. And this was before the trad wife movement. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a little bit tied to the loving your husband and singing his praises in front of others. It's this like, look at this guy. Look how great he is. Ron, wouldn't you love, I mean, I'm not saying Dana doesn't, but conceptually, a wife who admires and cherishes and cares for her husband, that sounds pretty great.
Yeah. And of course, it's assuming you feel like it's sincere. I don't want to just hear the words when I don't think she really believes it.
Yeah. Here's your plate. I guess you want me to fix it for you.
Yeah. And if I don't believe it about myself, even if she truly believes it, I'm going to have trouble accepting those words. You know, if she's like, oh, you can fix anything. And I think, well, let's see, it's still leaking under the sink. That one outlet still doesn't work. Why would you say I can do that?
Lauren, can't you just fix Eddie a plate and like dote on him here? Love your husband like that?
I do make him dinner every day.
You sound mad about it, though.
I'm just saying, like, yeah, I do make him dinner every day. And I come on the show and I talk about him greatly. I go to Walkworthy and I talk about him greatly.
You said really sweet things about Eddie at Walkworthy. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying you don't do those things, but like I think there's a lot of men who would long for like the doting wife, the wife who is like, I can't believe my husband. He is the best.
My first question is, have you told her that you want her to make you dinner and to be ready when you're home?
These guys did, and their wives were like, oh, come on. I'm working hard too.
She is.
Yeah.
And he's not disputing that. Mm-hmm. He's longing for this type of femininity, I think. Maybe he's wrong. I don't know. Is he wrong?
I think so. I mean, I understand where he's coming from, but I think you need to understand, too, that, yeah, she is working hard. In most households, the woman still makes dinner and might not be ready right as you get home. She may not serve it up, but she made it. And she worked hard on that. And she's showing her love and her respect to you in that and other ways. It might not be the exact way you want, but it's still in there.
But I find it fascinating that one of this, like they highlighted at the beginning of this Christianity Today piece, a particular viral Instagram post about being a trad wife. And one of the, I mean, so this person is representing well the movement enough that it's covered by a media source. Mm-hmm. And one of the big pinnacle lines in here is loving your husband and singing his praises in front of others. There must be something behind that. Are women doing this?
I mean, I think it depends. I think some women are, yes. Mm-hmm. But I do think that there is I don't know how to call it trend, but women do complain about their husbands.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not that you shouldn't have a safe environment to be able to like vent about relationship issues.
But it needs to be like those one or two people. It doesn't need to be going all around to everybody that you know complaining about him.
Right. Because we have developed after years of Doug Heffernan's wife, Carrie, and Ray Romano's wife, whatever her name was in the show.
Deborah.
Yeah. They had an air the entire time of this guy's a bumbling idiot. And I think that leaked into culture.
Yeah. And it wasn't that one show. It was almost every new sitcom on the networks was that way.
To be fair, they were bumbling idiots.
Well, absolutely, they were. And I thought they were hilarious shows. I'm not hating those shows. They were very funny, but...
Yeah, I think you have to have that safe space to do that. Like you have your one or two friends who know him actually and know his character and know his heart and know that he's not actually that way. You just are having maybe a hard time in your marriage or you're having something that's frustrating. And they can support you and push you back to what's true.
And for me, anytime I see, whether it's talking about how well they're doing with God and how they're digging into devotionals or just talking about how great life is in general, I always have a bit of skepticism to me, especially if we're talking about on social media. I'm like, you might be faking it. And I've known some of those people that are like, look how great life is and everything's aesthetically pleasing and look, I'm in my Bible. They are some of the fakest people I've ever met. So
there's a lot of truth in that.
I don't know why you think you need validation from your wife talking about you to other people. Like if she's beating you down constantly, that's one thing. But if she's, doing things for you around the home and showing you respect in nonverbal ways and telling you that she loves you, I'm genuinely curious what else you think you need.
Well, I picture almost what these women are painting in this particular picture, right? It's you're at church with Jimmy, and you kind of lean up against him and wrap your arms around one of his arms, and smile. This is my Jimmy. It's my Jimmy.
That's not me, though. I told him very early on, I'm like, I'm not into any sort of like public displays of affection. They make me very uncomfortable. Doesn't mean I'm not an affectionate person. I just don't like doing that in public.
Well, then for him, it's maybe you just like that longing look with a twinkle in your eye.
It's also not
so,
me, though.
So people go like, oh, look at her. She loves her Jimmy. That's Daria's Jimmy.
Why do other people need to validate my relationship, though?
You like that too, Lauren? Are you? I mean, come on, sure. Just lean against Eddie and like, that's my Eddie.
That's not
Eddie.
my personality. Anyone who listens to the show on a regular basis can tell you that's not my personality.
Maybe somebody in the trad wife movement would go, that's because you're not being feminine enough. Show people that you're a woman and you're following your husband. You're leaning on your husband, literally and figuratively. Oh, my Eddie.
My husband being the head of our household doesn't mean I lay on his shoulder and whisper talk at him.
Honey, you worked so hard today, my Eddie. Come sit down. I got you. I made some lemonade.
I worked hard too.
But he worked hard.
But so did I.
Life is work. Everybody works.
Ron, they're a little combative here.
I'm just saying it's not my personality to be. I am not a whispery, breathy. That's not me, and it's never going to be me. That's not how God made me, and it's also not biblical womanhood.
It's not.
No, it's not. It's not.
Mm-hmm. I think the guy who longed for his wife to be more trad wifey, that's okay if he wants that. But if it's not her, you can't expect her to do that. And maybe you have to, talk it out. And maybe there's things she can do that make her uncomfortable, but can be a little more pleasing to him. But there will probably be an equal amount or maybe more that he has to do to make him more pleasing to her.
Yeah.
Maybe she wants him to hold her hand in public, and he's used to just marching around and do whatever. Maybe he's expecting her to take out the garbage or mow the lawn, and she views those as male chores, and so he's got to pick up on the slack there.
Yeah, we our friend Janelle years ago, she was her husband does not like PDAs like you're talking about. And I remember they were at the mall once. She told a story. Ron, you can help me with this, but
okay.
She started she kissed him on the cheek or something, or grabbed his arm. And he's like, "What are you trying to prove?" So to your point, not everybody likes that kind of thing.
Not everybody likes it, and it's not everyone's personality. Maybe you want like certain things, but you're not to ask your wife to change her entire personality to be something that she isn't is not appropriate.
Yeah, and I don't know that we understand in the church today the urgency of manhood and womanhood and defining it. Mm-hmm. Because I've talked to local pastors who there's a very cultish, chauvinist picture of manhood being told to young Christian men that is almost the answer to the trad wife movement, where I think young Christians are being pressed into this corner in a very unhealthy, untheological way, because the core to this is that it's not that the trad wife isn't biblical, but she, you know what I mean? Like, this is not how it's a caricature. Mm-hmm. Womanhood is not defined by your outward appearance necessarily. It's not defined by these caricatures painted, nor is manhood. Like what's the chief end of man, Ron? In the Westminster Catechism?
Yeah, to love God and serve Him forever, enjoy Him forever.
So what's a man? What's a woman? Someone who deeply loves Jesus and tries to conform their life to look more and more like Him.
Yeah, it's someone who looks like Christ.
That's what a woman is. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, it's acknowledging God's creative power and the existence of two genders, no question. That's part of it. But the hyper focus on manhood and womanhood, I think, may be the problem.
I would agree. And I'm really concerned we might see a rise in abusive marriages the way that these two caricatures are converging.
Absolutely. And it's only been in the last like 6 months that I've. I mean, the trad wife thing's pretty new, wouldn't you say? Relatively
In the last
speaking,
year.
Yeah, year or two.
Year or two.
But
Yeah.
the manhood caricature is, I think, fast emerging.
It's fast, and there are some voices in on YouTube and such that are telling men some really toxic things about what it means to be a man and warping scriptures. Because truly, but what it means to follow Jesus is to deeply love and follow Jesus. That's the beginning and the end of it.
Yeah.
And to love your neighbor as yourself.
Yes. To be kind and patient and gentle is not just women's traits. That's traits for everybody.
Right? Yeah, we talked about that at Walk Worthy. This is the part that drives people nutty. When you try to swing the pendulum too far the wrong direction, you forget that men are called to be gentle and meek. So are women. It's not a distinguishing characteristic of gender. It's a distinguishing characteristic of a Christ follower. And so you're right in the sense of that. If God's creative power can make every snowflake different, why couldn't he make each woman different?
He can, and he does.
Yeah, look at you two. You're very different, and yet you agree on this thing, obviously. But what I appreciated about our conversation off the air about this yesterday is you two were not willing to do what a lot of people do, which is throw the other under the bus. You're like, hey, trad wife, good for her. If that's how she wants to live out her faith in Christ and her identity as a woman, good for her. But it doesn't mean I have to do that to be a woman.
Exactly.
And this is the thing I've been singing, the song I've been singing about men for I don't know how long now. Stop trying to make me into the caricature that you've created in the church. And the church keeps doing this. What if we just focused on what it means to love Jesus deeply? Then we wouldn't have to worry about all this.
Yeah.
But that's just my 2 cents.